Hello again, and welcome to today's tutorial for A4 Bleed, where we'll be making a business card. Here's the assignment sheet for today's assignment. Please note it's A4. We'll be focused on the bleed, which after today's lecture, you should be familiar with that term and how important it is to the print industry while we make a business card. Here's the introduction. Business cards are very common products that we often see in our day-to-day lives. Business cards represent who you are, your company, and where you work, and how someone can get a hold of you. Let's make a simple card together. The assignment. The purpose of this assignment is to make an InDesign file for a business card with Bleed, then package correctly and submit it to Brightspace. The objectives are: download the supplied file, create a new InDesign file, place your name on the card, add Bleed with a colored box and an image, submit zipped file to Brightspace. Here are the document specs we'll need. Document size 3.5 by 2, margins 1/8, bleed size 1/8. Don't forget to download the supplied file I have provided on our Brightspace page. Then we'll add the text to the business card with your name, your program, and your email, and the colored box with an image. Here's your display template for you to review. To be submitted. So the same as last week, submit your compressed main folder to Brightspace, and this week we'll be adding something new. We'll be separately exporting a second PDF with all of our printer's marks and bleed. Once again, make sure you're using the proper naming conventions as listed here below. If you have any questions on the grading system, here's how you'll be marked, and that's what they're worth. So first things first, as we start every assignment, we're creating a new folder for this assignment. This new folder will be named our program, our assignment number, followed by your last name. In this folder, we need two things, as we learned in last week's lecture. First thing we need is a supplied folder. We do have files we need for this supplied folder. So let me open Brightspace. So from Brightspace, we select our class, we go to Content, where you find everything we need under week 4 for today's assignment. Then you'll find your A4 underscored supplied folder, and we'll download this file. In our downloads folder is where you will find the supplied file. Here's the zip folder. Double click, and the folder should open up with the pieces that we need. We will drag the A4 supplied photos into our supplied folder for this assignment. Perfect. Now we'll know where to find them when we get started. So we'll start with InDesign. Everyone should have this downloaded from last week's class. So we'll start with creating a new document. So the same as last week, we'll start with naming our file the properly named folder. So the biggest thing to note is when you're naming your working file, you must add that one-word description, followed by your last name. Using the specs on your assignment sheet, We're looking for a width of 3.5 and a height of 2 inches. This will automatically change your orientation to landscape because the width is wider than the height. Make sure you're working in inches. We turn off facing pages, and the next piece we need is our margin. Select the margin. This is where I'd normally quiz you on what this measurement is, but if you look at your assignment sheet, it has all the information there for you. So we're changing it to 1/8. Have you noticed that none of these other sides changed? That's because I didn't select the link. Next, we'll add the bleed and slug. We'll focus on the bleed. We won't be using the slug within this class. However, next semester we'll discuss more of what it actually is. So the bleed we're looking for is also 1/8. So you can type in the decimal, or you can also type in a fraction in design, and it creates the decimal for you. So make sure you check with your bleed and your margin that all the dimensions are the same the whole way around. Next, we'll create. So here you'll note we have our trim final size. So the white box is what we want our final product to look like. We have our purple pink line with our margin, which if you remember from today's lecture is where all the important information must be. Next, you'll notice the new red line. The red line is the bleed. Objects and text can flow past the red line, but we'll make sure that everything within the red line is printed. So anything that's outside of that red line will be completely discarded. Otherwise, with what's within the red line will not be discarded until after the printed process. So, the next step, as we did last week, we're going to use our rectangle frame tool. This is the rectangle with the X. So last week we clicked and we created a specific size. This week we're going to do it differently. I'm going to draw a box of any size on the right hand side. I'm then going to use my selection tool, the dark arrow, and manually adjust the box to hit all the way to the bleed on the top, on the right, and on the bottom. This will ensure that my image falls off the page from my finished size. I'm then going to use the left side and I'm going to drag it until I see a purple line pull it into place. Purple or pink, same as the margin. So the pink line is designed and it lets you know when you've hit the exact midpoint of your project. So I'll now release and I have exactly half of my finished size with the bleed created in a box. So like we did this week, we ensure this box is selected. Sorry, like last week, we ensure this box is selected and we're going to File, Place, or Command D for the shortcut. We are then going to go to our desktop where we will find our AMCA main folder. How can you tell it's the main folder? There's no descriptive text. And inside my supplied folder is the folder I supplied with our image. I know it says A5, but it's A4. Open. Beautiful. Except what's the trick we need to remember whenever we place an image into a box? It places the image the full size of the resolution that it was created. However, if you look on the assignment sheet, I see blue and dark spots in the image that aren't shown here. So once again, making sure you have the white boxes to ensure the box is selected. We will right-click, Fitting, Fill Frame Proportionately. Perfect. Now we have our image, our full image. You can still see a gray line here, which is where it will be trimmed. So our next piece, looking at our display, is we're creating a colored box at the bottom of our business card. That means I'm going to use the rectangle tool. This is a solid box for a solid block of color. Here's some tricks. There are two boxes on the left-hand side. We have a fill and a stroke. The fill, just like you would have used in paint, is the paint bucket fill that fills in the full inside color. Underneath, we have the stroke. You can, by selecting one or the other, you're selecting which one you want to change. The stroke is also known as an outline. InDesign has recently updated and has a very useful tool on the side to remember your fill and your stroke. You can take these by picking a color, and there you have. Your fill is pink and your stroke is black. However, for this assignment, and most assignments we do, the stroke will mean none. By having no stroke, you have no outline, and therefore you have a solid box. Back to my selection tool if I want to make any changes. However, I'm going to show you a trick. There are some beautiful colors in the sunset, and therefore I want to use them. I want to make this box a piece of one of these colors. I can do this by using the eyedropper tool. So making sure my rectangle is selected and my stroke is turned off, and making sure my fill is over top, I'm going to use my eyedropper tool, right-clicking, and making sure I use the eyedropper tool. It'll automatically select the color theme tool, which you can use. It's just a little bit more cumbersome, so we'll use the eyedropper tool. That is just the little dropper. I will then select a color from the image. So whatever color I want it to be, that's what it will pick. So you can choose whichever color you want. All I'm looking for is that it was taken from this image. Once I've selected my color, I'll go to the selection tool, and I'm going to drag my rectangle to the outside of the bleed corner. So we're making sure this rectangle hits at least both edges. It can go past, but it must hit these edges in order to count. So I'm going to drag my box till it touches the image, and then I'm going to bring it up about a third. So I've visually split this into 3 groups. You can also use your rulers and kind of make your guidelines. However, I'm not looking for exact, I'm just looking for a rough idea. So now that I've made my box, the color, and it goes to the bleed, I'm going to add the text. My goal for you is to create one single text box. So I'll go back. I'm on my selection tool, and now I'm going to use the type tool, the same one we used last week, where I'll drag a box that's roughly centered in this white space. Notice that my box is within the margin. Remember, we're going to put important information. Therefore, it must be in the live area within the margin. So as mentioned on the assignment sheet, I want your name, I want your program, and I want your email. So like anything, there's my name, the program, and nscc.ca. Please note that if you end up with something like this, your text box just wasn't big enough to begin with, you're welcome to increase it. However, you'll note this little red box on the right-hand side. This is what lets you know that you have text that surpasses the box. So you can make the box wider, whatever you need to do to fit all of your text so you can see it. However, I don't want production on 2 lines, and I don't want my email on 2 lines. It doesn't look like a professional business card. So you can select what you want to change, like you would in Microsoft Word or any other text program. And on the right-hand side, we have our character. So a character is referred to as a single letter or a single punctuation. In this case, whatever you select will now be affected. So I'm going to change my text size to 9 point or anything that will now fit in one space. I always like to leave my name larger because that's the first thing I want my customer to see when I present them a business card. Next, I'm going to select the whole type. And I'm going to pick a font that I wish to use. Make sure whatever font you pick is legible and easy to read. Avenir is a go-to font that I use for most things. I next want to make my name bold. So if you notice in InDesign, there's not the traditional B for bold, I for italics, and U for underline. However, there is this drop-down menu underneath the font. It gives you various options. Not all fonts have these options. Some only have a few, and some have quite a few. Oblique is also known as italics. Some fonts you choose will say italics, some will say some will say oblique, and they're the same thing. There's also black and heavy. They're different levels of bold. I'm going to choose black. So as you can see, this is where I want. The next piece, if you wish, this is good enough. This is all I need right now. But if you'd like to kind of challenge yourself, you're welcome to select the font. We'll use our eyedropper tool again, and I can pick a color for the font from my image. So, if you're like me, there's a level of OCD to make things straight and symmetrical and even. With this bleed line and all these extra lines, it makes it a little hard with your eye to make sure things are in place properly. There's a trick. As long as you're not within a text box, this trick works. So make sure if you still have a flashing cursor, go back to your selection tool and hit the letter W on your keyboard, also known as View, and it's proof something here. Oops, it's been a while since I've done it that way. Mainly, use the W on your keyboard. This will now show you your printed product. Here's it with the bleeds and the margins. Here is the uninterrupted finished product. You can still edit within this W section, however you might miss pieces. Once you move them off the page, they're gone. This looks symmetrical to me. Not quite. Last piece now is to add the social media icons. So we'll hit W to go back to our editing page. We'll go to our frame tool. And we're going to make these boxes 1/4 of an inch. So 1/4, or the decimal, 0.25. Make sure it's the same for your height and your width, as this is a box, a square. Now, here's our square. So back to our selection tool, I'm going to eyeball this to be against our margin line because it's important information that I do not want falling off the side, but kind of halfway between our top of our pink and the bottom of our trim. However, here's what I mentioned about the W. If you want to use, it will disappear on you when using this preview. Next thing, the same we did as last week, selected it, edit, copy, edit, paste. And I'm going to use my guides to line up to see that they're the same height in the same line. Now the next way, right click, copy, right click, paste. Once again, and you can even see I've got little green arrows on the bottom to show that they are the same width apart. And for the last way, I'm Command or Control C for copy and Command or Control V for paste. And now I have all 4 boxes. Now if you'll notice, or if you're someone like me, this space and this space aren't quite the same. So kind of challenge yourself. If this is as far as you get, that's fine. But the next challenge would be, gonna eyeball it, that's roughly 1/4 of an inch. But now my boxes are unevenly distributed. By holding the Shift key on your keyboard, I can select all 4 boxes. And then on the right, you'll find a line where my cursor is. There's 3 little dots that give you more options, and we have this distribute horizontal centers. So when you select this box, your icon should automatically shift so that they're evenly distributed amongst the 4 boxes. Now I'm going to individually select each box, File, Place. And once again, you should be back in your A4 supplied files where it says Facebook, Open, File, Place, Instagram, File, Place, Tumblr. I guess I should have changed that to TikTok now. File, Place, Twitter. So now that I have all 4, I can right click, Fitting, Fill Frame Proportionally. Make sure you select the box, and you can tell with the little white boxes around the outside. Perfect. So that is the end of the design portion of today's assignment. But we're not done yet. So like last week, we need to make sure we file, save our assignment. This can be saved on your desktop separately from your main folder. It's the redundant save that you have to do before you can file, package. I don't know why, it's just what we gotta do. So once you've saved, you can go File, Package. We select the summaries, it says nothing's missing. Package. Once again, we will save to our desktop, and it will add the word folder because we are packaging it. So as long as this section is correct, don't worry about the added word folder. Package. So I'm going to minimize this for a second. So I'll show you, we have our main folder here on the desktop. We open our main folder. There's the supplied folder that we already created earlier with all the pieces we needed. So back to our main folder, we're going to drag our package folder. So this is the one that will have our full description. So note the main folder has no description, but our package folder has the description because it has our working files with the proper description. So as I noted, your package folder creates a PDF. Today we're going to create a second PDF and save it within our main folder. So I'm going to open InDesign again, and instead of package, I'm going to go File, Export. So I've changed nothing, I've saved nothing. We're going File, Export. So this will look similar to what we did before, so I'll save it to my desktop. It has the working file name down here below, Adobe PDF Print. So this is going to be important. Next we'll click Save. So when we save, everything here should be automatic. There's no need to change anything except for the marks and bleeds like discussed in our lecture today. We are going to select all printer's marks, so all of these checkbox, and we're going to select Use Document Bleed. So what this means is you can manually type in a bleed if you forgot to do it at the beginning. Otherwise, if you use the document bleed, which is what we should be using every week, this will automatically use the measurements, as you see popped up here hidden below, that we supplied at the beginning of the assignment when we were setting up the document. So for this export, File, Export, to our desktop, it's an Adobe PDF Print with our proper working file name and convention. Save. All of this information stays the same. We head to our marks and bleeds where we turn on all printers marks and we use document bleed settings. Now we'll select export. So at this point, I am done with our Illustrator or InDesign file. So on the desktop, you'll see that I have my second PDF. For any Mac users, you can hit the space bar and it'll open that file just as a preview. Otherwise, you're always welcome to double click, and on a Mac or a PC, it should open the file in Acrobat or any PDF viewer you have on your system. So the biggest difference between this PDF and the one that was automatically created in your assignment, this one is your final trim size. So the PDF that's created in your package folder is just the trim size. However, you'll notice here on our all marks, our separate exported PDF, we have a whole bunch of markings. We'll talk further what these markings are. you'll notice crop marks, like we mentioned before. We have marks here that show you the edge of the bleed, and then you have marks that cross over into the bleed, but not fully into the trim area, like we discussed in today's lecture. We have other marks here that we'll discuss later on, but mainly we have important information that I'll be using to mark this assignment later on. So that's the last piece. Drag that PDF into your main folder. And we can delete the redundant InDesign file. So this is what you should have to make sure that you've completed this assignment correctly. You have your main folder, AMCA underscore A4 underscore your last name, not the word last name, type your actual last name. Then inside that main folder, you'll have your package folder, you'll have the separate exported PDF with all of the marks, and you'll have the supplied folder. Once you've completed all of these pieces, as we've done before, we're going to right-click our main folder and hit compress. Then in Brightspace, you'll go to our A4 upload. Where I'll show you your view. Oh, go back through it. Content, week 4, upload. You should be able to click and drag your assignment into the upload and submit it. It is due next week before our class. That's it for today, and I hope you all have a great week. And let me know if you have any questions. Bye.